First, let's welcome David Bernardino to the stage, founder and managing director of Bernardino Enterprises. For over 25 years, David has led brands and driven growth across various sectors, including building materials, home building, consumer packaged goods, consumer healthcare, advertising, management, consulting, and nonprofit, serving organizations such as P&G, Merck, Pinnacle Foods, Samsung, Ammunition, and Deloitte. His work has spanned organizations ranging from startups to the Fortune 100 and in geographies ranging from North America to the BRIC countries, including Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. In addition to his business endeavors, David serves in various leadership positions as a corporate trustee for the National Association of Home Builders Leading Suppliers Council, member of the board of directors for NAHB, member of the board of directors for She Built Foundation, and advisor to Free Spirits Company and Mama P and True Vista. David is also a frequent speaker at industry events such as the International Builder Show and the Kitchen and Bath Show. Outside of work, David spends much of his time shuttling his two very active athletic sons between various sporting events, and in some instances, he may be operating the scoreboard or doing the team's stats. And please don't hold it against him, but he is from my home state of New Jersey. So please welcome David Bernardino.
Good morning, everyone. You're probably asking yourself, why is a marketer up here? And, this presentation came from a couple conversations that Cindy, Chris, and I have had over the course of several months, just nerding out about the state of the industry. Because right, there are a lot of innovative speakers, there are a lot of innovative practices that are happening here. But ultimately, the missing link is we got to change consumers' behavior. And as we continue to nerd out in those conversations, it became patently clear that we needed a call to action, almost a clarion call, because the world is changing more rapidly than ever. If you think about just what's happening all around us today, there's digitization, right? Think of blockchain, crypto, AI. Hell, half the images here generated from ChatGPT. I was able to do this presentation and develop it in literally half the time that normally would take me to do this. All these other things that we've been talking about today as it relates to digitization, changing the way we do things. Skilled labor leaving the industry. We all know this, right? There's the famous study by McKinsey back in 2020 that said 40% of the skilled trades in the United States are going to exit the industry by 2029. Last I checked, we're about to enter 2025. That's literally tomorrow. Housing shortage is worsening, right? If you think about it, the estimates say 1 to 3 million units short, and yet we have the largest cohort of consumers coming of age, Gen Z. If you just think about it, that shortage is probably going to get worse before it gets better. However, all those factors, right, digitization, skilled labor crisis, the housing shortage, they represent massive opportunities, particularly how we build, which is why we're all here today, right? Massive innovations as far as that's concerned. How we go to market, right? We need to really be thinking about different ways on going to market and reaching our customers, our consumers, our future tenants, and things like that. How we delight them, because ultimately if we don't delight them, if you don't delight your customers, they're not going to become repeat business. If we don't delight homeowners or tenants, they're not going to repeat. So at the end of the day, this is all about consumer delight. How do we ensure that we actually deliver on the promises that we actually bring to bear? But if you think about it, it's a lot of barriers to change, right? Because if you're not doing anything that's disruptive and innovative, you're not going to hit the proverbial wall. What are some of them? I sit on the board of the NAHB. You hear this all the time if you sit in Washington, D.C. Code changes, right? We all seen it, right? Dave was talking about IECC and some of the other things, right? How do we get around this labyrinth of code changes that are upon us and are coming down the pike? Shifting legislative and regulatory environment goes without saying, right? January 21st, we're going to have a new regime in town, right? The rules are going to change. And then if you think about all that dovetails into the state codes and how local codes are doing it. So how do we manage all those things given these potential barriers or potential tailwinds? But I think the number one thing that we have to face, for thinking about it really honestly, is this general fear of failure, right? We are a risk-averse industry, and that leads to a bias against change, right? talked to a lot of my clients across the industry, whether it's software platforms or whatnot, the number one thing you hear is, oh, you have a great platform, or you have a great product, or you have a great set of innovation. I don't want to be the guinea pig. Come back to me when someone else has actually proven it out, right? I'm getting the head nods, like I've seen this before. A lot of people think that that's a bridge too far. Call me Pollyanna, call me an optimist, but I honestly think this is the marketing challenge of a lifetime. Think about it. All these different things that are going against us, all these different things going against us as an off-site industry, it's the marketing challenge of a lifetime because of all those things. Because at the end of the day, I'm now going more technical in terms of marketing. Our job as marketers, if you think about any function within a business, the marketing function is solely focused on changing consumer behavior. Because if they were adopting the behavior that you wanted, you wouldn't need us. So there is a critical role to play which this industry in general has not embraced. And it comes down to a very simple framework. This is something that P&G has used since literally the 1950s to change consumer behavior. Like if you sat in Cincinnati and asked the Pampers team or the Tide team, what are we going to do? It's literally, you could see one pager that talks about this. And I'll walk you through this in a little bit of detail. On the left-hand side is literally put on one page. What are they doing today? How are they thinking, feeling, and behaving vis-a-vis your brand, your category, your service, whatever it may be? Put on one page. Then on the total right side of the chart, it's what do you want to think, feel, and behave tomorrow after interacting with your brand, with your product, with your service? Obviously, it's going to be very different, and obviously, it's going to be in favor of your brand, product, or service. Great. The most important piece of the equation is what's in the middle. What's the barrier to change? Or what are the barriers to change? What are the unmet needs that your customer, your target audience, or whomever is seeking but is not telling you? Or another way, what are those pain points? Put that on one sheet of paper and map it out. Because if you've done this exercise, you can transform marketing from a cost driver into a business driver. Because what you can now do is put everything that you're doing from a messaging perspective, from a product perspective, from a pricing perspective, from a distribution perspective, to address all these key barriers, to drive that change of behavior. It's totally hacking sort of the neuroscience behind what drives behavior and sort of getting to the heart of what makes people tick. Remember the movie, What Women Want with Mel Gibson? It's basically that exercise. Thing is, most people view marketing as a collateral maker. So as Jen eloquently put, I was a consumer packaged goods marketer that stumbled upon this industry about 10 years ago. And I remember my first meeting at Samsung. This was leading B2B marketing for home appliances, launching that brand into the industry. And I remember the sales director, Guy Minix, we were sitting in a meeting and he says, Dave, marketing's a collateral maker. I just need brochures, I need swag, I need shirts. What the hell are you guys going to do? The other thing that you guys do, you host great events. You have these jaunts with builders or whomever. You really don't add value to the organization. I said, Guy, honestly, I think we can be a secret weapon. And the thing is that we can be a secret weapon in categories that are not visible to the consumer. And when we were talking, Cindy, Chris, and I, a couple times, we were wrestling with this question of, okay, it's easy to change consumer behavior in things that you can see. In the building industry, we refer to it as stuff that's outside the wall. Think of fixtures, think of surfaces, think of home appliances, think of flooring, right? It's really easy to see sort of the benefits and all that stuff. But what about categories that are inside the wall, that are invisible to the consumer, invisible to folks? You know what? The best practices that we can learn. This is literally a shelf set of the analgesics aisle that I took last week at CVS, getting my flu shot. You look at the left, it's Tylenol. And look at the right, it's branded acetaminophen. The dirty little secret in consumer healthcare is that those products are probably made out of the same factory in Perigo, Michigan. The only difference is they put the box. One has Tylenol on it, the other one has branded CVS in it. If you scroll down, look at the price points. $8.29 for Tylenol, $6.99 for CVS. If I took a broader shot of the shelf set, Tylenol has 50% of the shelf relative to CVS brand. But yet, if you look at the actual product, the chemical that actually works inside you to deliver the pain relief, it's 500 milligrams of acetaminophen. It's the same damn thing. But yet, Tylenol has been able to garner a 50% share of shelf. Can be done, ladies and gentlemen. This can be done. Another category, probably maybe closer in, Intel versus AMD, right? Everyone's heard of Intel, right? Dun, 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 right? The little jingle. Who's ever heard of AMD? One person, right? But many people have heard of Intel, right? Why did they do that, right? It's become de facto standard in many instances because of what they've been able to do. Another one, this comes from years ago, right? Remember the iPod when it first came out? iPod was not the first MP3 player to go to market. You had other folks that were literally on the right-hand side. But Apple, to their brilliance, made the interface simple. They created, right, the Apple Store, where you could buy music. But they also introduced this notion that personalizing your music library in a way that's easily digestible and you can take anywhere is all about individual freedom and expression. That's the thing that they tapped. Unlike the folks on the right, it's a lossless MP3 player with all these features and all these features that actually no one gives a damn about. Maybe a little bit closer in. Owens Corning, right? Remember the Pink Panther, right? It's come sort of the de facto standard. You look at every Henley Wood builder uses survey, they're still the #1 brand in most instances, both from a brand affinity, but also from a brand usage. Last 12 months, brand usage last 2 years. So if you think about it, trial, repeat, loyalty. Because they've been able to build a brand over time that resonates with consumers versus the guys on the other side, just, hey, achieve greater energy efficiency. That's great and all, but all else being equal, a lot of folks are speccing Owens Corning. So why do I say all this? Because ultimately, it's about articulating your core value proposition, right? Going back to the chart I said earlier, current behavior, desired behavior, barriers. The next part of the equation is you got to articulate a value proposition that addresses that change in a way that's demonstrable to you. The framework we like to use is basically saying, hey, because we give X, you, the consumer, get Y, and here are 3 reasons to believe. You do those 2 things, you pretty much have the DNA of what your brand can do from any type of messaging. Give it to any marketing CMO, they can go execute this tomorrow in a way that will demonstrably start to differentiate your brand, in a way that will actually start to grow your brand in a way that actually makes sense to you. Because ultimately, right, what is marketing about? It's about trust. It's about a relationship, right? If you look at all the different examples that are out there, marketing and the successful brands created this relationship built on trust. Again, it goes back to what are we promising and are we delivering against it? Ask yourself the question, are you doing that for your own brands, for your own services, for your own products? Because honestly, if you've done effectively, it can overcome the least common denominator that I find in every market research study since I've been in the craft for 30 years, which is price. That's the worst thing we want to hear, right? When you're sitting in, oh gosh, it's price is the #1 purchase driver. That's a crock of BS. Because if you're actually delivering something that addresses those consumer needs in a way that's differentiated to you, you can actually drive premium pricing in this space. The issue is, most of us, and this is an indictment on us as an industry, we fail to get a thorough understanding of our target audience. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of wherewithal to get the voice of the customer. I sit on projects. I'm working with a couple clients right now, and some of them are like, oh, we already know the target audience. Do we? The answer is probably no. And so by repeatedly understanding what our target audience, our consumers are all about, we can start to address the value proposition. Because ultimately, price isn't the only barrier. It's about bringing value to your customers in a way that demonstrably addresses their core barriers, their core issues. Because if we can do that, it goes back to consumer delight. They will always be loyal to us. So I'm going to leave you with 2 questions because I know we're close to the break. Where do you stand? Where do you stand with this? And take an honest look at yourself. Where do you stand? Second question is more forward-looking. Are you ready to take advantage of the opportunity that's in front of you? Because damn it, I am. I left my last organization 2 months ago to go on my own because of the opportunities that are in front of us. Are you ready to take advantage of what's in front of us? Because, God, this is the time for us to make change. And I thank you kindly. How does this apply given a more convoluted path to purchase? I think part and parcel with this, which I didn't show this is sort of the abbreviated version. The complex version of this would be you start to map out the customer journey and all sort of the inputs into the path to purchase, all different ways that your potential target audience interacts with the brand in the consideration phase. In a lot of these categories, the consideration phase could be 3, 6, 9, 24, 36. I've worked in categories where the consideration phase is 5 years. So how do you continue to nurture those relationships such that at a certain point, you're able to convert that into a potential business opportunity? But how do you continue to stay top of mind, knowing that the purchase cycle in these instances are real long and convoluted? Because the joke we say is, it's almost like the UN. Like, it takes forever and you need consensus, but if one person says no, you're done. So how do you start to map out the marketing systems and processes such that you can efficiently nurture and prospect those relationships such that by the time they say, hey, I'm ready to buy or I'm ready to consider you, you're in the tournament. But it involves a whole deep understanding of path to purchase and then how the marketing infrastructure that you have, whether it's marketing automation platforms, CRM systems, your selling organization, how do they all fit in that equation such that over time you're guiding that person, you're guiding that company, you're guiding that consumer such that year 5, to give that long-winded example, you're at least in the tournament.